Anybody who knows me knows I don't identify myself as a journalist. I happen to have a great deal of disdain for most of them, actually. Listen, there are some good journalists. We have a lot here at Newsmax, but I have felt, as many of you have, for years that most of these journalists lecture me on how I should feel rather than just giving me the facts so I can form my own opinion. And the government leaves those types of people alone. They leave those journalists alone. Most of them keep their jobs. But what happened to Catherine Herridge should scare every single journalist, even the ones who blindly support the powers that be, because you could be next.
CBS News seized hundreds of pages of my reporting files, including confidential source information.
And that's not normal, is it?
No, that's not my experience in the other two networks that I've worked at or with my colleagues at CBS News. When the network of Walter Cronkite seizes your reporting files, including confidential source information, that is an attack on investigative journalism.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Look, I've always felt Catherine has checked her personal agenda at the door. She's made friends and enemies on both sides of the aisle, but she was always fair. And until now, she was never fired, nor were her records seized or given to the FBI, nor was she ever held in contempt for not revealing her sources. And here's why that matters.
I am facing contempt fines because I am upholding the most basic principle of journalism. If you cannot offer a source, a promise of confidentiality as a journalist, your toolbox is empty. No whistleblower is coming forward, no government official with evidence of misconduct or corruption. And what that means is that it interrupts the free flow of information to the public. And as we all recognized, journalism is about an informed electorate, which is the bedrock of our democracy.
They fired her via Zoom call. Then they locked her out of the building, took all of her files, confiscated them. Then they gave them to the FBI. They then gave them back, of course, but who's seen them now? You may not like journalists, you may not like the government, but imagine a world where the government can do anything they want. And you'll know nothing about it until it's too late, until it already happens, until it's already law. This is why our founding fathers gave us a First Amendment. The reason this is so important is because Catherine is being held in contempt of court, being fined $800 a day for not telling the G-man who her confidential sources were, who was telling her about bad government dealings. She doesn't have to tell them that, nor should she have to. How many times in the history of America has policy been changed by public outcry on the backs of good reporting from sources and whistleblowers? I mean, case in point, Watergate, potentially the most famous explosion due to confidential sources. Richard Nixon was involved with breaking in to the opposing party's headquarters at the Watergate Hotel. Someone came forward confidentially at first to Woodward and Bernstein at the Washington Post. If those people knew their identity would be known before the story was too big to be ignored, do you think they would have come forward? I don't know. Maybe not. The Pentagon Papers, first brought to the New York Times by a confidential source, that LBJ was lying to the American public and Congress about the scope of the Vietnam War. Brandon Coleman at the VA wait lists. Hundreds of veterans were dying on carefully curated wait lists at the VA. Would he have come forward and saved potentially thousands of lives this ended the wait list, had he not been protected as a confidential source? How many times has a company pumped toxic chemicals into the environment until it was reported on, a la Aaron Brockovich with PG&E, or the Teflon plant made into a movie called Dark Waters, all originated from a confidential source? How about ESG? Pensions and public money was invested heavily into this money-losing strategy until reporting drove millions of people to call their representatives and withdraw those investments from non-money-making social curating initiatives. But even more locally, how many towns, maybe yours, maybe your city, have proposed stupid legislation and they hope to sneak it through in the middle of the night, and some diligent reporter was tipped off about it, anonymously generally, igniting public fury on the backs of good reporting that resulted in the bad legislation being pulled? As much as I think many in the media are self-serving and arrogant, they do serve a valuable purpose of accountability. Thankfully, Congress is now taking this up with Catherine as their star witness.
When you go through major life events, as I have in recent weeks, losing your job, losing your company health insurance, having your reporting files seized by your former employer, and being held in contempt of court, gives you clarity. The First Amendment, the protection of confidential sources, and a free press are my guiding principles.
She's a known commodity in nearly every circle of journalism. But even she became the victim of a campaign to not report on the Hunter Biden laptop story and his web of dubious financial endeavors.
I don't know what factors the CBS News executives considered when they terminated my position. There was tension over the Hunter Biden reporting and the Biden administration, but I can't say for sure why I was let go.
I can. Biden, when he was VP under Obama, was privy to the White House spying on the Associated Press. They spied on journalists. The same group had 51 intel officials sign a letter discrediting the Hunter Biden laptop story. They knew it was real, and they lied. Then their advocacy groups sued the laptop store owner for exposing it.